Well, hello, good evening, Erev Tov, Bunasera, Namaskar. I'm welcoming all the audiences from India, Israel, Romania. I'm hoping some are there from the UK as well as the US. So once again, good evening and welcome to the 138 broadcast. On today's series, and I'm hoping it's going to be a series called as The Author Speaks. And we are coming live from Bucharest, Romania, from the studio Radio Shalom, which is in collaboration with the Jewish Community Center. So big thanks to Adi and Sophia for helping me to do this. So if y'all know who ran alive, yo ran alive. And I'm doing the authors speak today with a good friend, an old schoolmate of mine, and an action thriller writer, Douglas Misquita, joining me in from Mumbai, India.
Hi,
So
Yoran.
just, hey,
Hi,
Douglas.
everybody. Thanks for having me. All right, go ahead.
So let me just welcome Douglas and say that he is an action thriller writer from India. He debuted in 2011 with Haunted. And I remember a photo shoot that I did with him on that book. Since then, Douglas has been churning out a book a year. In 2019, he released 2 books. So 7 books so far, he tells me. 4 more in various stages of completion. So Douglas, we are definitely going to ask Douglas about this. His books are praised by fans of the genre for their quick pace, international locale, and contemporary themes. Reviewers have likened his thrillers to work by established writers and have imagined A-grade actors playing lead roles in the big screen adaptations. His
That's
last
true, by the way.
Don't worry, we're going to get into the nitty gritties of it, and we're going to be the judge of that. But yeah, that's fantastic. His last 3 books have consecutively won gold and silver literary Titan awards for their interwoven plots, attention to detail, and pure storytelling thrills. So Douglas, good evening. Thank you so much for even helping me with the words. I apologize if I've made any kind of typos or errors with that, but welcome to the broadcast, Douglas. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me as your first episode of the Authors Speak. Hello, everybody.
So, Douglas, just getting back into where we all started, or where you all started from. Did you intend 7 books when you finished Haunted? I believe that's your first novel, right?
Yes, Haunted was the first book. And when it was done, I said, that's it. I don't think I've got another story in me. And then I happened to be talking to someone, I think it was on Facebook or some of the other chats that were around at that time, and inspiration struck, and I said, okay, let's try another book. And I surprised myself when I finished the second book in 6 months. Haunted
Okay.
took me 3.5 years or more,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
then one thing led to the other, as they say. And sometimes I just look at these books and I ask myself, have I really done these many books? And I say, yes, I have. Yes, I have. So that's, yeah. There was no plan at the time of Haunted, but uh, I have plans now.
I see. Okay.
Schemes. Let's call it schemes. I'm scheming now. Always scheming.
That's really good, Douglas. Most of right now, a few of our viewers already have questions for you. So as it is the next question, I'm also going to collaborate the question with Lynn D'Souza, who has written in. I have a few questions. What inspires his writing? Where does he find the time, considering he's got a full-time job?
Uh,
So would you want to
okay.
take that up?
Yeah, sure. I can answer that. So I look at this hobby as a job. Okay, and just as you have a
Okay.
job where you step into work and you need to focus on what you're doing, I make it a point to write every day. It might be just a paragraph, or it might be an entire chapter, or
Right. Mm-hmm.
or more than one chapter. But it's become a kind of a regimen now that I write every day. And where do you find time? I had this article that I read, which was called uh, "Writing in Stolen Moments." And
Mm-hmm.
that's actually what I do. I just steal time wherever I can. If I've got my lunch break, I mean, I take 5 minutes out of there, and so I
Right.
eat faster and I write something there. Or at night when everybody's asleep, I'm at my book. And if I'm not writing, I kind of have this compartment in my brain where it's scheming, and on the
Okay.
other side I'm
Okay.
talking to people. And
So,
so it's always happening, it's always
okay.
going on. That's how I just do it. I don't have a fixed time. I just find time. You need to find time to do this.
Right. So is there like a fixed kind of a plan or religiously that you are doing every day? I have to write 500 words, or I have to write one page. Is it something like that, Douglas?
No, it's not that. It's just whatever comes in that day works,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. I have Wayne Lemos writing in, who is a
I remember
comic.
when artist, he does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
It's
mentioned he
it's
would be Wayne from school.
so
Yeah, I
it's really
remember.
good that to see that you have the support of good friends that have come in, and I'm really glad about that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Wayne is asking you what brought about the idea to write. I think that's a very
Great
fantastic
question. Yeah,
question.
great
Yeah,
question. All
I would
right.
say that.
So it was in the eighth grade, 1993. I was, I think, 12 years, probably 12 years, 8 months. No, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
12 years, 8 months. I would say not yet 13, not yet in my teens. And I read this book, which I think everybody knows. It's by Michael Crichton, Jurassic Park. And that was
I
the
know the
first novel
movie.
I read. What's that?
Okay, I know the movie. You see, I'm not much
Yeah.
of a reader,
Okay.
but okay.
No, no, that's fine. I watched the film first,
I
and I
see.
said that's what inspired me to read the book. And that was my
Mm-hmm.
first book. I read it in 6 hours, and at the end of it, I just took a moment, I was so enthralled with Mr. Crichton's ability to transport me into this world of his imagination. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't true, but for those 6 hours, it really felt true. And I said to myself, that's power. That's the kind of power I want to wield, and I think that's what got me to write. And I wrote my first book on 100-page single-lined book in neat cursive flowing handwriting.
It's like a notebook we used to get in school, I believe,
Right.
something
Yeah.
like that.
So
Oh, okay.
that's the inspiration. And that was what started it off. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So Wayne, I hope that answers your question. Of course, people, please remember that we are live on broadcast from Yoran Alive page. If you'll have any questions to my good friend and action thriller writer Douglas Misquita, please feel free to write in those questions directly into the broadcast so that we can take it up and Douglas can address it as well. Like I said, we did plan this and we have questions just in case people didn't, but I see people are coming in with questions. I have Ashwin Fonseca asking you at the moment, do you carve out time to write, or do you do it whenever you feel the urge?
So I feel the
So,
urge every day, and then I
okay.
write. I write, as I said, I steal time and I write. I just take time out and I write.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's not a fixed time. It just happens whenever I get the time. So I mean, uh, not now, of course, because now I need to focus on what's going on here. But who knows? An interview might make a fantastic scene in one of my books. Yeah, you're always looking for inspiration.
Okay.
Always, people drive down the road and they see cars, and I see cars crashing into each other, tumbling, guns coming out, people shooting out at each other, and you know,
There's a new
big
scene
scale. So
that's
I mean,
born.
so
Right,
yeah,
right.
so I mean, you just find inspiration everywhere, right? I mean,
Well,
yeah.
when you talk about inspiration, I will take this moment right now and say thank you, because I know that you have mentioned me in a couple of your books, if I may say so, and that was really nice. I mean, to use the real friend in one of your fictional characters, or should I say, or were they true?
Um, well, you are alive. The guy in the book died, but he died in a blaze of glory. He went down well.
Yes, I had.
He was
Mhm.
Israeli. So I mean, I mean, and
I am
and
Israeli
yeah.
by
So I mean,
passport.
so the moment I thought, okay, I need an Israeli ex army guy. I mean,
Hmm.
Yoran, because I recall you had a picture with a M16, right? Was that an
Yes, I did
M16?
do the
Yeah.
army. Yes, it was an
So that
M16.
was the picture
Hmm.
that came to my mind, and I said, okay, Yoran is in here, but unfortunately he had to die. I mean, sorry about that, but you went
For
down
the
in a
greater
blaze of
good.
glory.
Yeah, for the greater good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic, Douglas. So Ashwin goes on to say, and he's complimenting you. He said, uh, sorry, Douglas also drew the complete map of Isla Nublar. Have I saying this correct?
Yeah, you're saying it correct.
From
Yeah.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That was crazy. Those were the days. I mean, I was so obsessed with that. I
Yeah.
discovered that none of the maps they published were right, so I had to get the map right. And then we made a
So
game. I remember that we made a
wow.
board
Oh my
game on that.
God. So Ashwin says that he did that, I believe, because he found errors with the original map.
Yeah, yeah, I did.
I can't believe this. This is really good. You want to share something about in short about it, or you want us to continue?
I just wish I had the map with me here. I didn't think Ashwin would bring that up. Yeah, but the map is there. It's preserved.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Ashwin, I truly appreciate bringing back great memories to you both for that matter. Where the hell was I? But anyway, that's not important. Thank you for the questions, Ashwin. Keep writing those in. I'm with Douglas Misquita live from Mumbai, India. If you have any questions, write them on your RAN, a live broadcast on the live chat, and we'll take them up as well. Oh, I have another question. Any plan to write a romantic story from Avijit Jana?
Flat out, no. I'm not the guy who writes romantic stories. If I tried, you'd know it's fake. So I mean, I stay true to what I write. So I write action thrillers. I love action. I love adventure, big scale, exotic locations, interwoven plots. And I think we'll talk about that in some time. But
Right.
no romance, no horror. I get scared of horror.
I understand. Okay.
Six. Werewolf had me screaming and running out of the room. So no horror.
Right. Well, Douglas, I must say it takes great guts to be on live broadcast and say exactly how you feel and what you like and what
Oh,
you don't. So
well,
hats
I
off to
think,
you for that. Seriously,
thank you.
appreciate
I
that.
think, when you write, it makes you bold because you need to know that, not everyone's going to like your books.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to still say what you want to say, right? That's what you
Definitely,
chose to
of
say. That's
course.
what you chose. So yeah. So I think I learn. You learn to be bold. You learn to be strong.
Okay.
Uh,
So, Vijit, I hope Douglas has answered your question. Please feel free to write any other questions you may have. Wayne continues to say he was an amazing artist. Does he still draw?
when I do sketch, in fact, I I wanted to put up this prop, but it's not yet done.
Okay.
I'm working on a Masters of the Universe Castle Grayskull from scratch. I don't know
Oh,
where that came from, but it's going to be great.
wow.
So I sketch stuff into that, and
Mm-hmm.
the books Haunted, the first book, and the first book, what you see on there was sketched. One second. I've got these books here. Just hang on.
Right.
Give me a minute.
Yeah, sure,
Let me
sure.
move
No
things
problem.
around because this took a precarious setup. Secret of the Scribe. I sketched this. Okay, I sketched it, and then it was scanned, and then
Can we see it? Can you hold it for a while so we can just have a look at
my
it? Hold it
younger
a little
brother, then
closer.
added in the stuff in Photoshop. I thank him for that.
Okay.
The first
Okay.
book, Haunted, was sketched in paintbrush. And then we scanned it and then we made it look better. Hey, there was supposed to be a blood splatter in the book. I don't see it. Yeah, there was blood
Printing
in the
error.
book. No, I think I changed stuff when I brought out the second and the third edition. So maybe it's gone off there. So I don't sketch as much. I think, yeah, it's back to how it was. Yeah, the precarious setup. No, I don't sketch as much, but I have it in me. So if I need to sketch, I sketch. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for answering that, Douglas. So coming back to the beginning, right? What did you feel when you debuted? Was it everything you expected with Haunted?
So you've heard the phrase "dream come true," right? If you probably heard that,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah. So
Absolutely. Yes.
it's absolutely mind-boggling and a very emotional moment when something as ethereal as a dream becomes tangible in a book. I was holding the first book out of the box. I
Mm-hmm.
went to the post office, Bandra post office, and they had this box, and I brought it home, and I opened it, and I brought out the first book, and I started crying. And then I
Wow.
handed it over to my mom. She opened the first page. She saw that the book was for
Rest of soul.
she started crying. So I mean, it was an extremely emotional moment, and it felt amazing. It felt fulfilling. Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Okay. So, are your books? I mean, I know this answer, but I will still ask it out. Are your books in a series or are they standalones?
The books were not meant to be a series. So you can tell, right? Haunted is standalone, Secret of the Scribe is standalone, and
Right.
then the Apocalypse Trigger was standalone. And then I saw that a lot of authors were doing these, where they have one book and then another book and then a third and a fourth based on the same group of
Mm-hmm.
people. And I said to myself, maybe I won't do as many books per hero or per protagonist, antagonist,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I will do smaller groups of them. So yes, so I've got the Kirk Ingram Action series. That's 3 books out already. Spectre came out last year. And I've got the Luke Fortesque Adventure series. That's 3 books. The last one due out October, November this year, hopefully. And I've got Escape, which is at
Mm-hmm.
the moment 2 books. The second one not out, draft completed. And I finally nailed down the Indian hero. I wanted this, and it's
I
finally
see.
working out. The books are
Mm-hmm.
not yet out, but they're there. They're in the pipeline. So some are standalone, some are, some go
Okay.
into the second or third book.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about each series and maybe a little bit about the book? I mean, how did it start off, and how did you end up writing 3 books for Kirk Ingram?
Okay, so Kirk Ingram was inspired by Mission Impossible 2.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll speak about that in a bit. Mission Impossible 2. I mean, stars Tom Cruise, and it was directed by John Woo, and I love John Woo's action sequences. So a lot of the action in Haunted Kirk Ingram number
Mm-hmm.
1 is
Mm-hmm.
just this raw action. I mean,
Okay.
and Haunted is about this guy who's had a traumatic experience, and then that propels him onwards. Like a contemporary Batman, or your stereotypical hero. But then
Okay.
what happens in the second book, Diablo, is I feel I was more confident of my skills as an author at that point. And I said,
Okay.
I don't want Kirk Ingram to be an FBI agent. I want him to become the enemy of state. And
Mm-hmm.
I had to break him out of the FBI. So he's a traitor from some perspectives. He's a hero by some perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay.
Spectre came in, and with Spectre I just took a contemporary thriller and turned it on its head. I went all paranormal. Spectre is paranormal, so I think that's a great story arc when start off with a
Right.
contemporary thriller, and then it
Okay.
becomes something entirely different. And
Oh,
that's what I wanted to say. When somebody read Spectre, they said they imagined Tom Cruise playing that lead role. So I think it was quite uh, uh, what's the word? Well, we'll work on the word afterwards. But it started with Mission Impossible to Tom Cruise, and then finally, when somebody says Tom Cruise should act it, I mean that was, uh, yeah, that was what I was aiming for all along. A big action,
okay.
and okay, Tom Cruise. Okay,
Nice.
I hope he tunes in, and I hope he reads this.
Fantastic.
It would be
Fantastic.
great.
I will just
Oh,
take a small pause over here,
sure,
Douglas,
sure.
and just sorry, you were saying something? I
No,
paused you.
take your pause. Take your
I,
pause. I
I
was going
I just
to.
wanted to say that we have questions coming in which we have scheduled for later, but Erica Zhang has written in. So I will take up that question, Erica, a little towards the end. Avijit, just hold on with your question as well. Thanks for tuning in. Please write in your questions. Thanks for helping us ask those questions and approach those questions towards Douglas. So Douglas, let's talk
Can I?
about, or if you would like to share something regarding Luke Fortesque. Fortesque. I
Yeah,
said that
Luke
correct.
Fortes. Yeah. Luke
Sorry.
Fortes is no. Luke
Yeah.
Fortes. That's yeah. I don't know where I. So the fact that the name is tough means that when I started off, Luke was not meant to be the hero, right? He's the bad guy in the
Okay.
Apocalypse Trigger. He's the bad guy. And
I
then
see.
in book two, that which finally became the Immortality Trigger,
Mm-hmm.
I think that was about the time when this concept of the anti-hero was, good. That was the time. So I said, I mean, Luke Fortress is a bad guy because of
Mm-hmm.
circumstances that have pushed him to become that way, right? I mean, he's a smuggler, he's killed people, he's done this and that. He's not your hero. But I said, what if I, push him into a circumstance that brings him back to what he was prior to going bad, or
Mm-hmm.
prior to becoming evil? And that's what the immortality triggers about. So I mean, if you read the Apocalypse and then you go to the immortality, you see this change that's happening in him,
Right. Okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
there's a third book that's out, like I said, the end of this year, a trigger, and that's where it all comes to a head, and you see this full transformation, so that's what I did with Luke Fortes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so it's not like the Kirk Ingram, because Kirk Ingram is contemporary action, metros, and you've got action happening in the streets, on the roads. um, Luke Fortes is more exotic locations, rainforests, and plateaus, and
Okay. Mm-hmm. All
stuff like
right.
that. So I mean, that's a kind of adventure flair to it.
I see.
A-
Lovely.
And I've got
Yeah,
the
I was
Escape
going to
batch
ask
of
you about that.
books.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's a risk. That's a risk that paid off extremely well. And um, I've
Tell us
uh,
about the risk. What was the
yeah,
risk here?
the idea for Escape was, I mean, um, why do we need to have these big heroes, right? I mean, certain there are everyday people in certain parts of the world who become
Right.
heroes just because they want to live, right? Just because you want to live, you're compelled to do something, and that makes you a hero. So I said, I'm going to take the most unlikely hero. He's not going to be backed by any superpower.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's going to be a guy who's I mean, the underdog. I mean, no one thinks twice about him. He's in jail. He's incarcerated in probably the worst jail in the world. I mean, which was the worst jail in the world, because
Right.
it was actually uh,
Okay.
uh, razed to the ground
Mm-hmm.
in the wars in the Middle East. So I said, let me make him from there. So he's this guy who's got nothing to live for. He just wants to leave his life behind, but circumstances make him act, and that makes him a hero.
Wow.
He's not the guy who wants to be the hero, but he has to be the hero because that's what he wants to do. And if he becomes if he becomes a hero, that's just a consequence. It's
Yeah.
not
So
who he
that's
is.
yeah. So it's
you
not what
know
you intended to be, but that's how the people saw him. I believe so. Right.
that's
That's what
yeah,
it turned
right,
out to be.
right.
All right.
And
Okay.
the interesting thing about that that book is that I've blurred the lines between bad and good. Nobody's bad, nobody's good. It's just a perspective. I mean, even the uh, uh, the most villainous person on this planet might have the proper justification to do what he's doing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so it's
Douglas.
just perspective.
Absolutely. This sentence comes to mind that was put forth and said to me by uh, Nihal Fernandez, as you know, and he said that one person's criminal is another person's hero. So it's
True.
so I
So that's what,
very
yeah,
clearly remembered this. We were
yeah.
talking
So
about the Middle Eastern conflict, and he put this out very, very. I was like, wow,
that could
makes a lot of sense.
that could be the tagline for when the film comes out. One
Okay,
person's criminal is another person's hero. Okay,
hero.
Nihal,
Yeah,
but you don't get
yeah.
you don't get royalties on it. I call dibs.
Well, yeah. So let's go to the standalone, The Secret of the Scribe, if you want to tell us a little bit about that. Or you already
Sure.
touched it.
No, I didn't. Secret of the Scribe.
Yeah.
Everybody is on their phones, and they're on their laptops, or on their. They just learn to. So most people learn to type before they learn to write, I think, nowadays,
No,
or that's where we are. That's where we
that's where
might
we're
head.
heading. Yeah, yeah,
And
true.
what struck me there was, what if this entire art of handwriting was just lost? Right? Because nobody wants to write anymore. Why do you need to write, right? I mean, if you look at your day, the amount of time you actually write, I mean, you don't write,
Absolutely
right? I
correct.
mean, you
Yep,
absolutely don't. So I
yep.
said, what if I had a plot that that features this, the art of handwriting in various
Wow.
languages,
Fantastic.
lost the scripts, those
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
beautiful scripts, the Arabic script, the
Yeah.
Hebrew script,
Mm-hmm.
the Japanese, scripts. I mean, all those scripts lost because people don't want to write anymore, right? And I thought about companies that are trying to, bring in augmented reality and brain-to-brain, speech. That's actually fact now, by the way. You don't have to speak. You can just think it, and the other person gets it. And the fantastic thing
Absolutely.
is that Secret of the Scribe has that
Mm-hmm.
in probably 5 to 6 years before it was announced. So I was extremely happy about that. That that's a clear case of what we think is science fiction is not actually. It's all happening. So that's
Okay.
what Secret of the Scribe is, and I don't have an idea yet for another book, though
Mm-hmm.
actually come to think of it, just as I was speaking to you, there was something that just burst in there. So I think I've got something.
Go on.
So no, I cannot share that idea. I don't want anybody
Oh,
stealing the idea
I
right
won't
now.
tell anyone. I
But
won't tell anyone, I
yeah, we are
promise.
live. So but yeah, that's the thing, right? So I mean, so that's it. I just got that spark.
Fantastic.
I can have something else, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. We'll
Okay.
see where that
Okay.
goes. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So people, just that you'll know, I have pinned the link to Douglas Misquita's books on the live broadcast, so you can definitely have a look at that. As I said, Douglas is live with me from Mumbai. We are on broadcast on The Authors Speak. If you'll have any questions,
Episode one.
episode one. Please feel free to write in any kind of question that you might have. A few of the people have already asked in the questions. I will take them up in due time. So please stay
Yeah, yeah.
tuned, stay alive with us. So Douglas, you mentioned all the series and you mentioned us the different books that you have written. Which is your favorite? Which stands out for you and why?
So I think all of them stand out for me. But like I mentioned earlier, excuse me,
Yeah, that's okay.
the book that actually did wonders was the one where I took the risk, line, and that's prompted me to take more risks. I mean, whatever you do, you have to take risks. And I think bringing a book out is a form of a risk, right? You don't know how people will react to it. So I think Lion was the book that everybody enjoyed because they identified with this underdog. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the book that I actually began to get noticed by people, and that felt great. I mean, you bring out one book and people go on to Amazon or they go to a bookstore and there's just one book.
Right.
Not the next book, two books out there. But when you're up to your sixth and your seventh book and you go to Amazon and you type and the whole page has got your books, that draws people. And you go to a shop, you've got your books spread out there, that draws people in. They
Of course.
understand that he's in for the long run. And I think with Lion, I got people contacting me and asking me, we want to
Mm-hmm.
pick up your book. Where do we buy it from? Or would you be willing to
So
allow us to look at the book for you,
so
review the book? Yeah, go
I
ahead.
see.
Sorry.
So I would want to do a little perspective thinking
Mhm.
on this, right? Do you think it was the way you marketed maybe the book, or you used certain tools, or it is purely your writing that drew attention into the book?
I'm still trying to crack the marketing thing. So I have narrowed down my marketing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started off, there was, I mean, so much, and you have to be careful with who you market with, because I mean there are a
Absolutely.
lot of scams online, right?
Oh, really?
And I
Mm-hmm.
have uh, been a victim at times.
Yeah, learn the hard
Yeah,
way.
but yeah, and so I think it was
Mm-hmm.
the story, and for what it's worth, I think the bright shades on this book actually caught people's eye. So it's actually the flag of Russia, the
I
blue,
see.
white, and red, and that's what the book is: Lion Escape from Russia. So I think
Mm-hmm.
um, the the bright scheme is attractive, and the story is good. Yeah, definitely the story.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Douglas, for that. So this was a question, and I'm going to connect it with Ashwin because he has asked this question as well.
Ashwin is brimming with questions today.
So let me just go up. So here, as
It's not
Ashwin
rigged.
asking, when writing, what tools do you prefer to capture your thoughts on?
Okay, good. All right. I started off with a pen and a 100-page single-ruled book. I progressed through a discarded laptop with half a
Mm-hmm.
working LCD screen. So one half, the entire right half was just a splash of cracked LCD.
I
So I
see.
managed.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually used DOS editor to write in that half screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept pressing enter to get to the next line because I was unable to see what was happening there.
Right.
Since then, I've of course, I started then. I moved to Microsoft Word when I could, and at the moment, I use this software called it's called Scrivener. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a tool that's built for authors and for screenplays. The interesting thing about this is that it allows you to club your thoughts into scenes, and unlike Microsoft Word, where if you needed to move a scene, you'd probably have to find it and then copy paste and make sure you copy it and make sure you paste it into the right spot, and then the
Okay.
formatting goes. What happens here is the entire scene can just be dragged up and down. So so I've been using it for the last 3 books, and I'm pretty happy with it. It allows me to maintain structure. I know what's happening, and you can
Mm-hmm.
see it in the form of a tree at the side of you. You have this cork board in the software
Right.
where you can plan your notes out. So it's an interest. So I mean, that's the tool that I use right now, Scrivener, Scrivener. Okay, you can go online and check it out. And I use cloud services a lot because sometimes I cannot access my laptop, so I'm writing on my phone, and I then sync it with the cloud, and I sync back. So I mean,
So it's
I
quite a few things
I
you're doing there. Yeah, that's
yeah,
nice.
and Wayne asked me about sketching. I wish there was that sketch there, but it's somewhere. I have this sketch with all these lines, and it's quite complicated. But that's the sketch of the book. Sometimes, that's the plot,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because some of my plots are so interwoven. I get foxed myself, so I need to look at that and say, okay, this guy is happy. Okay, so it just helps me to calm down, and so that's what my sketches are.
I see. So I understand you're still sketching.
I s- yeah, of course,
Castle
that's what
Grayskull. I
is.
mean, you just
No,
said
no,
that you're
Castle
doing
Grayskull is
something with
being
that.
built. Castle Grayskull is
Oh,
being
you're
built. It's
building
being
it.
constructed.
Whoa.
It's being
So it's a
constructed.
3D. Okay, very
It's.
nice. Okay, this I want to have a look. This definitely my next visit to India, Douglas. I would definitely want to have a look at that.
I'm going to post it once it's out.
Okay.
I intend it to be done in the next
I
week.
see. So you're not calling me over, huh?
You're in Romania and there's the lockdown, no flights. Yeah, try.
Till then, I'll give you a like and a heart as much as I can. But
No, no,
fantastic. Thanks for sharing that.
no problem. I've got
Um,
my wires in. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
no, nothing. So I think you addressed this, but I'm still going to ask, where do you get your ideas? Do you plan meticulously? And this question I'm going to ask with Avijit Jana, who asks, writer and IT engineer for a multinational company, deadly combination. How do you manage? Generally, from my understanding, writers need time to think, but in IT job,
Abhijit.
there is no specific timeline of working.
Okay,
Avijit,
so
fantastic question. Thank you for asking that.
yeah, so Abhijit is a friend from work. I mean, though we haven't met, we talk a lot. We talk almost every day, and he knows what he's saying when he says we don't have the time. But
Mm-hmm,
well,
mm-hmm.
that's a factor of life. Okay, so the answer might surprise you, Abhijit, because you know me to be a exceptionally you know me to be a planner, right? We just spend the morning planning.
Even I know that.
You know that. Has my video frozen by some chance? Because it seems to have frozen here. Has
Oh,
it frozen? You're okay?
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we can hear you still. We can
Okay,
still
no
hear
problem.
you.
So I'll just talk, okay?
Do you want
And I
to
hope.
do you want to resolve the video? Do you want to try
I
to
don't
see the
know. I don't
video?
know why it's. Okay, let me stop video a bit and start again. Fail to start video camera.
So we're trying to work this out with the video. So I no worries. Take your time. That's not a
Problem.
problem.
Okay, but while we're working that out,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't have a plan when I start writing. Okay, I know, a plot A, the point of plot, I mean the point A in the plot, and then I know probably point E and then point Y and point Z, and I probably don't even know Z,
Okay.
but I know that there are certain actions sequences that need to happen, certain locations that have
Mm-hmm.
inspired me, and I want them in there. The thing is, though this might seem very disconnected and uh, disjoint,
Right.
um, I actually have a theme, okay, that links the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings me to the question, where do you get your ideas from, right?
Okay.
And the theme comes out from the numerous newsletters that I subscribe to. I'm always looking at stuff that probably ranges from army technology and climate change and faith and new technology, fringe science, right down to things like parenting and everyday hacks.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, these ideas might just come together, and that would form my theme. And and then I start to work with that. And as I write, I get to points in the plot where I need to learn something new to come out of a plot hole, as they call it, or a blockage in the plot. And that's what happened with the apocalypse trigger, by the way. I had
I see.
planned this scene which takes place on a precipice. There's a fortress on a precipice. How do you get into that fortress without being seen?
Mm-hmm.
And I that was when I discovered that invisibility cloaks, or uh, cloaking clothes, are not the stuff of science fiction. There's actually technology that's happening. So I said, great, let's use this. So I mean, that's something I learned. And
Lovely.
as the plot advances, you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself looking at maps and looking at history of a place, and then you'll find
Wow,
something else that you
interesting.
want to plot,
Mm-hmm.
plug in there. So I mean, it's all these things that come together. So I don't plan. I start as soon as I feel that urge. I have to write. And
Right.
I just start with that.
Okay.
So
So
I'm just wondering, just 1 minute. Do you think
yeah,
I
go on.
should go off the live and then come back, or
If you
will
want to
that?
disconnect from the Zoom and come back again, yeah, we can try
Yeah.
that. Not a problem.
Okay. So
Try
I'll.
to leave. Try to leave the meeting and come back
Okay.
into the
All
meeting.
right.
Maybe
So I'll
that
be
should
back
work.
soon. So I'll be.
Okay. So we are with Douglas Misquita from Mumbai, India. It's my 138th broadcast. I'm broadcasting from Bucharest, Romania, for people that might have just tuned in. We are at the Shalom Radio, Radio Romania in Bucharest from the JCC. If you all have any kind of questions that you would like to ask Douglas, definitely use
Oh
the
yeah, there we're
broadcast.
back.
We have
Great.
Douglas back
Great.
on video once again. So if you have any
Whew.
questions for him, feel free to write in to the live broadcast chat from your RAN live page, and we'll take it up from there. So Douglas, what I wanted to ask you, as we were talking about the ideas that you get and
Hmm.
you look into details while getting your story out. I remember when we were talking, you said there was even a time when you scrapped completely a book. Would you
Yeah,
want to
that
tell us that
happens.
experience?
That happens a lot. So
I Wow, that must be really
that happens
tedious
a
for
lot.
you. How
It
do you
it
feel when you
was
say like, no, this is not going to
frustrating.
go through? Uh-huh.
Frustrating because you finish the whole book, and when you're looking at it, it's just dragging. So it was dragging me down. I would not want to read that. I said, this is not going to
I
work.
see.
if
I
if
see.
it if it can't hold my interest, it's not going to work. So I was trying too hard. And then I scrapped it. And then but um the interesting thing is that you write your first draft, and there's a rule here. When you're looking at it again, you need to be brutal. And when I say brutal, I mean, I have scrapped scenes, chapters, excessive words. I just scrap it. So the first draft is, has all the words in it. It's got all the sentences, a lot of sentences, and there's lots of stuff happening there. But then when you're looking at it, I need to understand that people, when they read, you're competing with Netflix, you're competing with Amazon Prime, you're competing with entertainment.
Yeah, true.
Michael Crichton said, that, the fear of our time is not being entertained. People want to be entertained all the time,
Hmm.
and the book has to be entertaining. I mean, every page, every sentence, every word that you write has to be entertaining. And if that's what it takes to get to that, if you need to scrap a story because it's not entertaining, I mean, if it's not entertaining me, how do I expect it to entertain someone else, right? So if it's so you
That must be a lot of
just
pressure on every sentence. If you say like every paragraph,
no,
that's a
you
lot of
don't
pressure. No.
no, 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 I don't experience pressure that way.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I'm done with a chapter, I'm done with a scene, I step back and look at it and say, I mean, if I was watching this on film, I mean, how would this hold up, right?
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's how so I don't feel the pressure with every word. So my prose is quite fast. you know i
Right.
uh, I try to write fast English, so that you feel the intensity, you feel the speed of the book as you read, right? But there's also times now where I try to add in some interesting words, so right.
Okay.
So I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
point
I get you.
the point that the point being, yes, I mean, every author scraps a lot of his work, but that doesn't mean it won't show up somewhere else. So I mean,
I see.
something that I scrap in book 3 will show up in book 4 or book 7, where it makes much better sense, and when the whole thing comes
Uh-huh.
together, that you scrapped it there, and it's uh providence is yeah, it's providence that you scrapped it, because it makes so much more sense here. It feels so much better, it
Okay.
just
So
feels
it's
good. I
I'm
feel good. I know that
so
I would.
Douglas is getting ready to sing us a song. Douglas, get us your guitar. I think so. That's going to be the next broadcast that I'm going to do with you, because I think he really plays the guitar really well and sings
uh,
amazing. But for now, we're going to stay with the author theme. But I'm really glad to hear that when you say that you reuse the material, that means you're not completely scrapping what you had
no,
written. It's
you don't
just like
scrap.
you're
No.
using it
Yeah.
at another I don't know, juncture, as I would put it. Okay, so I understand that you have a book plan for the end of this year, Trigger Point. What can you tell us about it?
Okay, so Trigger Point is the third book in the Luke Fortesque
Mm-hmm.
adventure series.
All right.
And in the Apocalypse Trigger, Luke Fortesque has acquired the secret to the apocalypse. I mean, he has it. Okay, so if he wants, he can bring about an apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
And in book 2, he gets secret of immortality. Okay, so you've got one man who's got the secret of life and the secret of death with him. Now you tell
Mm-hmm.
me, if you were that person, would governments allow you to just live your happy life? No, right? I mean, you'd have
I
everybody coming
suppose
after
not.
you. And that was what I said. That was so. Like I said, right? I mean, that was the spark. I mean, this sequence where you've got special forces from probably 4 governments all coming after this guy, and there's this crazy action sequence. I mean, things blowing up, aircrafts falling out of the sky, boats getting
Mm-hmm.
overturned, explosions, guns, fires. So I definitely knew that was the focus of the book, that action sequence. Everything hits that action sequence.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found myself looking at a lot of articles on extremism and the psychology of extremism. And I read a lot on the crusades,
Mm-hmm.
the crusades, and then the wars that are happening in the Middle East, the political motivations behind them.
Right.
uh, what are these ideologies? What makes a person do this? And I thought to myself, I need to uh, make this clear, in my book. People generally don't understand extremism too well. I mean, you just hear of something and you say, okay, that's extremism. But I wanted to so I wanted to show that, I mean, anybody, so everybody, that's what I learned, right? I mean, everybody has the ability in them to become an extremist, right?
I believe so.
It's
It's
there,
suppose what drives them. Yeah.
it's this we versus them.
Mm-hmm.
It's this we versus them. And I mean, when you're looking at a sports game, what's a sports game? We versus them, correct? So
Right.
it's there, right? So I mean, but I mean, I'm not saying those are extremists, but you have the idea there, and that's what uh, that's the underlying theme, and I put a spin on it because the extremists are not who you really think they are in the book. So you have this fantastic, everything boiling down to this huge action sequence, and I had to have the apocalypse getting, unleashed on the world, and I was a bit concerned about that because of the pandemic and stuff like that. But I spoke to people,
Okay.
and they said, no, it's fine, it's fine. I mean, that's the story you want to tell. That's what you talk about. So
Okay.
I mean, that's what it is. I'm extremely excited about this book. It's great, it's great.
Okay, thanks for sharing that with us, Douglas. Avijit is asking a related question. As you mentioned, nowadays people tend to lean towards video apps, and apps
Mhm.
rather than reading books. So, any plans to write a screenplay?
So, no, I don't have plans at the moment.
Okay.
But most of my books read like screenplays, so I think they could be adapted easily.
I
And
think they will.
anybody, yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah, you can't tell where things go,
All
right?
right.
We never know.
So coming back to this question of what motivates you, Douglas, does it get easier with the amount of books that are written right now? So now it's easier, it's faster. How does
It's
that
not
work?
easier. It's not easier because when you started off with all these ideas, fresh ideas, and
Mm-hmm.
you can put them all down into your first book, and then some of them carry into your second book, third book. By the time you're in your fourth book, you don't have fresh ideas,
I
and
see.
that's
Yeah.
when you start, questioning yourself, and that's when you begin to discover the hard work. You start to put in more effort. You get more frustrated, but it's this highs and lows, you know. So I mean, it's the other thing is that by the time you're on your third book,
Right.
uh, people have an expectation from you, and that's what you have to keep meeting or exceeding each time. So it gets tougher with each book.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
motivates me? I like to break that down into two parts.
Okay.
There's something that motivates me to open my software and type, correct? And
Mm-hmm.
there's these three simple words that I heard from a priest friend of mine, Father Errol, and I mean, he's one of the most positive people I've come across. And those three words are keep keeping on. Okay, keep keeping on. It's simple, but that's gets me going. This second uh, uh, say thing that motivates me is something I read in Michael Crichton's Lost World. It says all your
Mm-hmm.
life people are going to try and take your accomplishments away from you. Don't ever let you take it away from yourself.
Oh, that's very
So
nicely said.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I open that laptop every day, open the software, and then what gets me through the story is I'm as excited as my characters to find out what's going to happen next to them,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
like I mentioned, I have no plan when I write. So
Okay.
so
Right.
it's like, I'm actually there in the book with them beside them while
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
happening, and that's exciting by itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you were saying that you after you write a couple of books, after 3 books, 5 books, you have a certain, or your fans or your people have a certain expectation, right? So how do you come to know what are they expecting from you? And this question I am tagging along with Wayne Lemos, who asked this question quite early, quite at the beginning of the broadcast. He was asking about any fan mails, if you have.
Uh,
So I'm looking up for the question.
Right. No, I haven't yet got fan mail, but I think the best thing that has happened so far is an established author, and her name is Stephanie Story, and she writes historic
Okay.
fiction. She's got
Mm-hmm.
some fantastic books. She wrote in and told me that she normally does not read action thrillers, but she was unable to put Spectre down, and that was it. I mean, that was my first endorsement that came in. Uh, you learn. So what do the fans expect from you? They just expect bigger, and they expect grander from you, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
always
Mm-hmm.
thinking, what's something that you've never done? What's the most outrageous scene you can think of? But it needs to be steeped in some reality and fact.
I
That's what
believe.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for that, Douglas. Can we talk about traditional and indie publishing and how they stack up upon each other?
Traditional publishing is when you have agents and you get your book published by the six big publishing houses, Penguin or Random House,
Mm-hmm.
Hatchet.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys have a plan for a year, and they intend to bring out certain books. They will market certain authors. Certain authors need to do the marketing on their own. There's a lot of groundwork that you need to do, right? And my first two books were published with an independent publisher. That is, they were not part of these six. But since then, I've discovered the freedom and the opportunity in indie publishing, and that's independent publishing. So I'm free from any contract. I write when I feel I write. I write the stories that I want to tell. I don't have to, fit into somebody's roadmap. And
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of platforms out there, and the world is changing. People are open to indie publishers, indie authors. They're discovering great content through
All
these
right.
media, right? And when Haunted came out, a lot of the people said, we're not going to read your book because it's not published traditionally. But now if you go in and you watch, those same people are now willing to accept independent author books, because they
I
know
see.
that they're
Mm-hmm.
I think the indie author groups around the world have proved themselves, right? I mean, just because you're not backed by someone big doesn't mean you don't have a good story to tell. So that's what works for me right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What works for you?
True. Absolutely. Thanks for that. So, we all know with the current situation, the pandemic is
Yeah.
basically infecting or affecting every industry possible. How do you think it's going to affect, or has it already affected the publishing industry?
It has already. There are a number of bookstores that have had to close down, right? I think the publishing industry will.
That's
So,
very sad. Yeah.
uh, it seems that Shakespeare wrote a lot of his work when London was impacted by the plagues. So the thing is, once the pandemic passes, people will be looking for escapism, right? They don't want. I mean, you might not want to immediately deal with the memories of the pandemic. So I think the stories that we will hear, as we pass through the pandemic, some of them will definitely touch on the pandemic. Some will be based in
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic, but I
Right.
think people might be interested in escapism. That's my opinion, and um, marketing will change. Earlier there used to be these book tours and the author traveling around the states, or not the states, I mean, yeah, each state in the country.
Right.
um, that has changed. A lot of people, a lot of authors are doing Facebook lives, Instagram, and that's interesting because I was able to attend a book launch of one of my favorite authors, something I was wanting to do for a very long time, and
I
I
see.
was able to
Mm-hmm.
do it because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um
I
and I
see.
think the pandemic has got so many stories in there. There's so much of there's so much
Absolutely.
of that's happening in the world right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
touched everybody's life. We are
Right.
personal with it. So I think there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lot of fodder for authors to tell stories. It's just a matter of when do you tell the story, where do you place it, how deep do you
Absolutely.
delve into it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
So
going to
you were
affect
telling
us.
me, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm
Okay,
done.
so Douglas, you were telling me that you could do a book. There was a book reading of one of my favorite authors, and Sophia Nagi had one of my friends from Bucharest had asked a question right in the beginning. So, which authors do you admire or like to read? If you would like to shed
Yeah,
light
sure.
upon that.
Sure. So I read books by Clive Cussler. I read
Mm-hmm.
Scott Mariani. I read Andy McDermott, James Rollins, Steve Berry, Lee Child, Michael Crichton, of course. What else? I have started to read a lot of non-fiction of late. You know, What are my other authors? Now I'm at a loss of words. I'm
Oh,
trying to
that's
look at
fine.
them.
It's okay.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
but there's a huge list.
What I would suggest then, Douglas, is you can
Joshua
only.
Hood, Joshua Hood, a new author
Okay.
who who tried 82 times to get his book published, and he succeeded on the 82nd attempt. I think
Oh,
that's great.
wow.
Yeah, so
Persistence. You have to be persistent.
you have to
If
keep
you love
keeping
what
on.
you do, you have to be persistent. And this is exactly, I think, what you do as well with your books, and you keep writing and making it even better. And I'm trying to do the same with my broadcasting. So I think
It will
that's a
happen.
very important
It
word.
happens. It
Yeah,
always
yeah.
happens.
So
Thank
I'm
you for
coming.
having me again. Thank you.
Hey, Douglas, come
Appreciate it
on. You're
really.
most welcome. I'm really glad that I can get friends that have different sets of talents to get them on the broadcast. And listen, I'm totally enjoying this with
Yeah,
you
you
and
need
and
to.
the broadcasting in
You need to
general.
enjoy
Exactly.
whatever you do.
So
You
there
need
we
to
go.
enjoy. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, coming to the question of words of wisdom, Douglas, for others, and I'm going to roll that in with Erica Zhang's question. What advice would you have to inspire someone who has clear ideas of what to write but hasn't been able to start the process of writing yet?
Okay. What works for me? Write the story
Mhm.
that I would like to read. I write stories that I would like to read, that I would like to
Okay.
experience, right? And I
Hmm.
think that's what I meant when Abhijit asked me earlier. I mean, would you like? Think of a romance book. No, that's not something I like to read. So I mean, that won't work. What would I tell someone who's trying to get into the process? Take a piece of paper and start writing down the first sentence, start writing down the first word, right? Start writing down the first sentence. Just write. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. The whole process of creating a book is a very introverted process. You're introverted for most of the year, and finally your book is out, you become an
Hmm.
extrovert. So it's that change. And don't be afraid. I
Lovely.
mean, you just need to do what feels right. And if you feel it's not happening, that's probably because the moment isn't there. But it's true that every one of us has one or more books in them. And I'm definite that with all that's happening around us, everything, just you'll find inspiration in the places you least expect. So
Okay, fantastic. So, Douglas,
just write.
sorry,
I was telling, I mean, whoever wants to write, just
just
write.
right. Yeah, you want to
Just
do
take
it,
that first step. You want
just
to
do
walk,
it.
take that
Yeah.
first step.
Absolutely correct. And this is the same, Douglas thought that I was having when I started with broadcasting. I was like, should I do it? Should I not? It was the start of the pandemic, of the lockdown. Everybody's in the house. I'm like, should I
Let me
do
tell you
this much?
something
What?
else.
Should I not?
Let me tell you
Go on.
something else that has stayed with me once again from one of Michael Crichton's books. All your life, people will be saying things to you, and 95% of the time, what they say to you is wrong. Absolutely true.
Do
Absolutely
you
true.
believe in that?
Absolutely. I mean, you just do what you feel is right. I mean, when I started Haunted,
Mm-hmm.
spoke to someone, asking for advice, and this person had not even read the book, and he said, "Oh, no one's going to read your book."
So,
If I had, been discouraged by what he said, I would not have 7 books and 4 more yet to come out, right?
so,
So I mean, you just
so
do
I'm
it.
going to ask you a little personal question, and you can choose to answer that or not. So, regarding about the fact, 95% of the times people tell you things that are not true,
True.
right? Oh, so where do you draw the line about which people? Does it include family
Um,
members? Does it include friends, close relatives,
so
parents?
I right. So I'm not just saying this, but I have extreme support from my family. Extreme support. Not
Mm-hmm.
once have they told me don't do this. Extreme support from my family. A lot of support from strangers. Uh, support from friends, and you have to keep an open mind, right?
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
everybody has something to say, right? It might not work for you, and that's what I mean by it might not be right for you at that point, but you
Mm-hmm.
got to hear them out. You have to keep an open mind. That's one of the things that an author does, right? You have to keep an open mind, right? Because you don't know where inspiration will strike. So you hear them out. It's up to you to take what's good, what works, and what's wrong for you at that point.
Absolutely. Okay, Douglas, thanks for that. I was just going through the chat to see if there are any other questions that people had written in. Please, I'm with Douglas Misquita on the live broadcast today on The Authors Speak. If you'll have any questions, please feel free to write in. We're almost done with today's broadcast, but the broadcast will stay on the page You Ran Alive. So do come by and write in a question. Douglas is tagged on the broadcast itself, so he will definitely look at them. If not, I will see that your questions are directed to him.
Sure, no problem.
Douglas,
Um, yeah, if you're interested in the books, you just head on to my
yeah,
website,
okay.
douglasmisquita.com, and there's a contacts menu up there, and you scroll down and
Mm-hmm.
where to buy. It's available all over. I use pothi.com in India for paperback and hardback.
Mm-hmm.
This
Okay.
fantastic company out of Bangalore, I believe. I use an online service called Draft to Digital to get my books to all the ebook stores. And they are
Okay.
also another uh, absolutely amazing company to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can't ignore Amazon, right? You need to work with Amazon. So books are
Absolutely.
out there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Douglas,
I had to say that.
you're most welcome. Any final words before we say good evening for today?
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. I appreciate the questions. I know you are all you've got stuff to do, especially with the weekend and things like that. But I had a fabulous time. Thank you, Yoran. Thank you to the radio station that hosted me. And I'm sorry if we went a bit over time, 3 minutes over time.
Not at all. It was a
But I think we
pleasure.
were
Not
having
to
fun.
worry.
So I think that's good. And
Definitely.
keep doing what you're doing. Stay true to yourself, and if you keep doing that, the universe pays attention at some time and things start to move.
Fantastic.
I
So
believe that.
that's lovely advice, Douglas. And thank you so much for coming on the show, on the broadcast today. We totally appreciate it. People that have written in, thank you so much. Adi Sophia from JCC, thank you again. Radio Shalom and Jewish Community Center. If I
Thank you.
have not been able to see any messages that came in from the chat, I apologize. It's not that I was avoiding. Sometimes some messages are not do not show up. So do write in the questions again, just in case I've missed out for anybody. So Douglas, on that note, I would say thank you so much. I had a fantastic talk with you and with the people on board with the broadcast. So I'm wishing you and the rest of us a very good evening. Erev Tov, Bunasera. And in Hebrew, we also say Shabbat Shalom as it's Friday Eve. So
Thank
wishing
you.
you all a great weekend. And Douglas,
Have
thanks for joining
a
in.
great weekend.
Thanks a lot, man.
Namaste.
Namaste. Milte hai. Ciao. Take care.
Sometime. Bye.
Have a nice
See you.
evening. Bye.